If you're being carried, please just be carried. It doesn't matter if you're just having an off game or simply bad, just be carried. People don't mind carrying folks. It's all good, man. You don't need to press the button to start a wave. You don't need to pick up the laser targeting gun to try and get the very last shot needed for the Bio-Titan. Okay, wait. Dude, if someone's being carried, I get it. They can still do objectives. Holy cow. Okay, I mean, dude, to be completely honest, if I'm carrying somebody and they know how to take out the Bio-Titan, I'd rather them just do that so I can take out the enemies, you know, on the map, rather than the objective enemy. But, I mean, yeah, okay, let's continue. This is an interesting post. You just need to take the carry. I'm not saying this because I'm God's gift to gaming. Sometimes I, too, need to just take the carry because, for whatever reason, the game is off. It isn't personal. What makes it personal is starting a wave when your teammates aren't ready, then immediately dying upon pressing the button that looked oh so tasty to press. I wonder what operation this is. What makes it personal is only needing one more shot on the Bio-Titan, but you pick up the laser targeting gun after being dead for 5 minutes and then just proceed to run in circles, not shooting the one shot that needs to finish the Bio-Titan until one teammate loses the gene seed and your other teammate dies picking him up. You just need to stop acting like a hyperactive child and take the carry. All right. Yeah, this is one of those rare funny posts where they kind of just like, you know, they put us into this situation, and look, you can't expect me to think that you're gonna carry players in termination if you can't get a res. You know what I mean? Okay, so let's say you're carrying people. What good is your carry if you can't? I mean, okay, to be completely honest, if you are able to carry them to the end of the level, that's fine. But if getting into, if getting into resurrecting your teammates puts you in a position where you die, not 100% sure you're the carry there, bud. But yeah, honestly, I share the same sentiment of this player in the sense that if you don't know what you're doing, don't force it. That makes sense. However, they still need to learn, you know what I mean? But okay, let's say this situation has a player with the gene seed who goes down because they're wasting time because a player who doesn't know what they're doing with the laser targeting thing against the Bio-Titan, they are running around in circles with it. I mean, to be completely honest, I haven't really been in that situation. I've been in the situation where the player seemingly is taking their time in finishing off the Bio-Titan, but they were getting chased by gaunts. So, I don't know. It was the guy running around with the laser pointer, was he just alone and just not sure where the Bio-Titan was? Pretty sure you can ping the Bio-Titan. Anyway, I'm not too convinced that this is a carry. Nah, it's a good post. I think they're making a good point here. But yeah, ultimately it's kind of weird to try to, like, you know, tell the difference between somebody who needs a carry and somebody who just at the moment doesn't know what they're doing. You know what I mean? But yeah, ultimately, I wish they said what difficulty this was on. I mean, if I'm playing sniper, I'm definitely getting a res, you know what I mean? That should be easy. Bulwark gets a res. I can maybe understand if you're playing like tactical or vanguard or something where maybe you're not capable of resurrecting your teammate because you don't have resurrection support. I mean, that's fair. That's fair. Ultimately, if I was in this situation, definitely fight off everything you see on screen and only pick up your teammate when you are capable of doing it. The res timer is pretty long, to be completely honest, so you could probably take out like a nice wave before you even need to go back to resurrect your teammate. And then okay, let's try to take their theory into a different situation here. Like Reliquary. I feel like when it comes to Reliquary, if you're getting carried, basically what you need to do is just protect yourself, just try to survive. If there's like a Terminator or a Sorcerer on screen that you're afraid of because you're getting carried, just ping them and roll away, find a wall or something, get out of the vicinity. But yeah, that's ultimately, don't be in this position where you're scared to do things because you're being carried. I don't like that. I think if you're being carried, you should have, you know, you should feel a little bit more comfortable kind of stepping outside your box a little bit, just so, you know, you're in a position to try things out and get better. However, you definitely need to gauge what you are capable of, to the point where it's like, you know how you can punch up in a situation. You might be able to take on 1 or 2 extra Majorus, but if you're not sure that you can take on an extra extremist enemy, ping them and roll away. Or something like that, you know. But yeah, it is within your responsibility to protect yourself. So if you see like a handful of majors on their way towards you, you're better off in a situation to at least get some gun strikes, at least take 1 or 2 of them out, and then hopefully your teammates start to protect you as well. It's all about team synergy. And ultimately, it's really hard to just get carried in this game. Like, even if you put up 5,000 damage, you're probably still taking out some enemies that were useful to take out at one point in the match. But, I mean, yeah, maybe a lot of players need to get carried in this game, but I'm not too sure that many players need to get carried in this game where we need, like, a PSA about it. But I do find this situation kind of funny because, ultimately, if you die resurrecting your teammates, like, in a situation, you're not really a carry there. You are, you're basically better than your teammates. That's fine. But still, you gotta, if you want to carry, you actually, essentially, if you're carrying, you don't even need to resurrect your teammates, right? You can just keep playing. But yeah, regardless, this is kind of an interesting perspective. I think if anything, if you have the laser pointer, or if you're playing any objectives in this, in, you know, absolute or lethal operations, make sure you do them on lower difficulties first, so you're not in a situation where you're rolling around looking for the Biotitan and your teammates are dying because of it. So, yeah, to avoid being carried, make sure you understand the objectives. Make sure you're playing these new operations on a lower difficulty. And then if you're looking to carry players and are getting frustrated with them, you know, missing the objectives or whatever, there's only so much you can do. There's only so much you can do. Yeah, can a player who not know what they can a player who doesn't know what they're doing kind of throw termination because they're rolling around with the laser pointer? Yeah, probably, which is unfortunate. But yeah, I guess in that case, if you're the carry, maybe you need to pick up that laser pointer faster. But ultimately, in my position, normally if a player is less than effective in combat, I kind of want them to pick up the laser pointer, and then I guess you should just play around them, make sure that you're clearing out ways around them so they can actually think straight and then use the laser pointer. I never seen a player just roll around without enemies, you know what I mean? I mean, in the sense of objectives and picking up the laser pointer to pick it up at a Biotitan. Normally they're rolling around because they need help. So I feel like there's a couple different ways you can kind of, you know, analyze this post. But ultimately, for me, I think carrying players isn't really as difficult as this guy's making it out to seem. However, it does seem pretty funny. But yeah, let's go into the community's reaction to this. Not a big fan of the idea. I get the sentiment, but people really should be sticking to difficulties that are appropriate for their gear, tier, / class level / skill. A carry in an off game is one thing, but queuing absolute every match and you can't manage to stay up without sandbagging stims or something should be a sign. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, just learning objectives in lower difficulties is probably the best way to go about, like, getting comfortable with a certain operation. Yeah, and yes, try your best to play within the rules of the difficulty levels. If you're uncomfortable with, you know, your skill level or a certain operation, don't jump into absolute reliquary because you beat ruthless reliquary and now you're prestige 2 or something like that. I mean, honestly, you should be able to pull that off. This is kind of a weird conversation to have because it's like I beat reliquary recently, and with a prestige 4 sniper, it felt pretty easily. Wait, no, I was actually prestige 3. I was prestige 3, wasn't I? Like level 17, I think. But as long as I had purification, I knew what I was doing. So you pretty much need to be at that point with your class to be able to go in absolute. Like, oh, I have intimidating aura, so I'm fine for absolute, at least for this operation. Like, that's normally how you kind of plan these things out. Yeah, don't jump into absolute for just extra experience to get carried. I think this is probably the worst I've seen, is just players jumping into absolute, clearly not ready for it. And, like, honestly, absolute right now, as long as you experience siege mode, what we have in absolute in the vanilla game isn't very difficult. So I think, well, let me preface that. It isn't very difficult with prestige 3, prestige 4, you know, leveled up characters, that sort of thing. Experienced players, I guess, but ultimately reliquary can still be kind of a pain for experienced players. Sometimes you need that extra prestige point or something like that. But yeah, ultimately, if ultimately if you don't really have a good idea on how you can punch up in difficulties, in the sense of like, oh, I have this perk, it difficulty scales, and I know when I get it at level 7, I can jump into lethal. Like, that's how you should do that. Not just jump into absolute because you want extra experience on your level 5 class. You know what I mean? Level 5 prestige 2 or something. I don't know. It doesn't, ultimately, it does come down to the player and their skill level. And I have seen a few players just kind of jump into absolute. But yeah, right now is kind of like an easy time to get carried, I will admit. But I will say that it is going to be very annoying in Absolute 2.0, seeing players just jump into Absolute without knowing what they're doing. I don't know what prompted this, but I do agree. Know your limitations and be humble enough to recognize a better player. Even when I'm hosting, if I see that this quick player clearly is above me, I'll concede. Concede what? Go ahead. It's if it's hubris, I'll be there to pick you up. If it isn't, then let the enemies of the Emperor feel our wrath. Dude, I actually want to give a little bit of an appreciation to the adapters. Some players are just like, dude, so many people jump into these operations with certain preferences. It's like you have to play around kind of how like they play, you know? Ultimately, I'm on the same page with everyone in the operation. It's pretty much everyone, as far as I've been queuing up with, you've only seen outliers of people like a little bit confused about stims. I think like, yeah, the other day I was in Absolute and we had a player who kept going down, and me and the other teammate, we were actually playing really well. So we basically let that player grab a handful of stim packs even though they kept going down. And in which case, a lot of people would be annoyed by that. Basically, that's stim hogging, especially if you just keep going down, you're wasting stims, essentially, right? But me and the other player, we were in a pretty good position for Absolute. I think they were level 25, Prestige 4 heavy or something like that. And they had the Gene Seed. So I realized they had the Gene Seed after we were letting that player just hog stims, essentially, to, you know, hopefully keep them in the fight. But yeah, that was a little puzzling because it's like, okay, so we have one player who's clearly struggling, but the guy with the Gene Seed let them pick up the stim packs. So you can't just tilt at that moment and get on voice comms, hey, our best player has the Gene Seed, give them the stims. It's like, I think for whatever reason, that Gene Seed player just gave up the stims. And if you're curious to see how this ended up, well, we won. We went through the operation, and not to mention the player who ate all the stims and died to like every other encounter, he actually stayed alive throughout the boss fight, and we took out the boss fight really, really fast. So I don't know. Sometimes this game can be puzzling. Sometimes you can have a player jump onto the game, die to the first couple encounters, and then, you know, the Trigon Prime rolls around and they don't die, and in fact they actually clear out like multiple tunnels. So I don't know. Sometimes this game's just weird. But yeah, being able to adapt to your teammates is kind of huge, to be honest. Not every player is a goal scorer. Some have to play goalie. What would be playing goalie in this situation? Like doing objectives? Some have to play defense. Yeah, okay. See, now I'm even more confused. The team wins if everyone plays their role. I think the team wins if everyone, yeah, plays their role, essentially. Plays their class, I will say. Sometimes the role you started the match with can change. Adapt and support your squad. Courage and honor brothers. I mean, I guess. I think, yeah, like the only way I could say that the roles could change if you like join as a bulwark, expecting to like support the team, but then it's like you realize your team's not able to get parries, so now you're also the close combat specialist. So now you're a support DPS. I don't know. Honestly, I rarely see people like step out of their classes, you know, role. Like I really do. Like it's not like you'll see like a heavy kind of just like use a sidearm and try to support players with Bonds of Brotherhood or something. Like that's kind of rare. I would say it's less about, you know, starting the match with a role and then changing it. It's more about taking multiple roles. It's more about like, oh, I'm also healing and I'm also doing DPS because I can. That's more aligned to what it is. But yeah, again, you wouldn't even need to pick up like multiple roles if you have players who are, you know, currently effectively filling those roles. Like if you have a Vanguard with Unmatched Zeal, do you really need Icon, or do you really need to place your Icon as a stim? Now you can just place your Icon in the middle of fights and you should be fine. So this is kind of an interesting, this is not like the subject of the video though. Now that I'm thinking about it, now we're talking about adapt. I mean, you know what? It is kind of like a sub subject. It's kind of like a side quest subject in a sense that you can adapt to your team. So sometimes you just gotta give your the teammates you're carrying. Sometimes you might need to give them some time to adapt. But yeah, unfortunately, if they go to the point where they're just picking up the Biotitan laser pointer and just rolling around, yeah, that's not good. But honestly, it's rare that I see players just throw that point, because that just doesn't make sense. Like, they're in for the entire operation. Why would they throw right at the end? They're rolling around likely because they're being attacked and they have a hard time, fending off the enemies there. So in that case, you would have to protect your teammate a little bit. But yeah, ultimately, if you play within your role, you should be fine. I rarely see people ask for the carry, but I have seen people recently jump into Absolute who are like level 5 or something, and it's like they clearly aren't Absolute ready. But since Absolute is in a spot right now where it's not very hard to deal with, at least if you're Prestige 4, then I don't really mind carrying players. But in Absolute 2.0, if you don't have a team perk, man, you're getting kicked. Like, I swear, you're probably getting kicked. My premade and I came up with a rule. We don't mind if you're running forward, or if you're going down all the time hogging stims, or maybe if you're just bad at the game. However, if you're doing all of those at the same time, ignoring pings, voice signs, we will have to part ways. I'm fine trying to carry a brother once in a while. I did not sign up for babysitting though. Okay, this is kind of an interesting perspective. If you're telling the carry how to get better and they're ignoring you and actively probably going against what you're saying as far as like stim distribution and everything like that, yeah, that's annoying. that's more like babysitting. It's one thing to carry, one thing to babysit. I think I understand what they're getting at here. Like, yeah, if the player is hogging all the stims, going down, and you have to get on comms on Absolute to let them know that they're wasting stims, and they still continue to waste stims, yeah, that's you can't really play with that. I understand their point here. I still don't know if you need to kick them, though, to be completely honest. I probably would if the other teammate was like, we need to kick this guy. He's actively trying to get on our way in this operation. Yeah, maybe in that sense, I think you can definitely kick them. But we don't mind if you're running forward or if you're going down all the time hogging stims. If you're doing everything at once, then it becomes an issue. Yeah, that's less... That's kind of funny. It's like, okay, wow, I'm actually kind of understanding this guy's point now, the original poster's point with the just get carried, because yeah, this is what they are referring to here, is a player who doesn't know what they're doing on a higher difficulty, picking up all the stims, maybe aggroing encounters that you guys aren't ready for yet. Yeah, just overall making it a tougher carry. It's less about carrying and more about babysitting, because now they're getting into so much trouble that you need to teach them the game. Yeah, that's rough. That's rough. I hope you guys didn't run into anything like this, but something like that would be like the situation where you can, let them know, bro, we're trying to carry you, but it's kind of hard because you're making it difficult. I can understand that. But yeah, let me know in the comments if you guys have any experience with carrying players recently. Have they been a pain? Have they been stealing your stims? And yeah, going down a lot. Regardless, if you want to say you carried somebody, you can't be afraid to res them or to just let them die, essentially, because then you have to clear out everything on the screen to get a good resurrection off. And if you can't do that, are you carrying? I feel like that's not really the important point for this video. I think the important point for this video is, if you are getting carried, be a little bit mindful, maybe. I don't know who's gonna jump in for a carry to then try to be considerate. You're already being inconsiderate jumping into Absolute level 5 without a team perk asking for a carry. But yeah, regardless, this is definitely a way to navigate team synergy. Keep track of stim distribution. I would say that's really like the only thing within your power. If you notice somebody taking too many stims and they're still going down, prepare for the carry. Prepare for the carry. But yeah, let me know in the comments how you guys feel about this. And thanks for watching.